So, Uncanny Avengers is the flagship book of the whole Marvel Now initiative. It's written by Rick Remender. It was drawn by John Cassaday. I don't know who's drawing it now. It was this big, hyped-up book with like 20 different covers and stuff. It was like the big return of John Cassaday to an ongoing series after 10 years and stuff. It's being written by Rick Remender, who's one of my personal favorites in Marvel, and it's an absolute mediocre piece of crap. There are so many things that just don't make any goddamn sense in this whole book. The first thing that doesn't make sense is everyone is mourning Charles Xavier, and they're making this particular death of his this big deal, which doesn't make a lick of sense, because after the AVX issue where Charles Xavier died was published, IGN had a list that basically showed all the times Professor Xavier died. Now, admittedly, a couple of them were just him faking his death or being sent into the future. But he did have several legitimate deaths where he did die and where he was brought back to life. And I don't understand how comic book characters can even give a shit when anyone dies anymore, because death has become so arbitrary, especially in the Marvel Universe at this point, that I just can't understand that any character would just even bat an eyelash for someone dying. Like, Thor died and came back like 2 months later. Johnny Storm was dead for like 6 or 7 months. And there are so many other examples of this where characters just die and they come back within a few months in the real world, which is like a week in the Marvel Universe. And that I just really don't understand how can these guys still keep making a big deal out of death when it happens so frequently and it sticks for such a short period of time. I don't get it. Like, it just bothers me when I see comic book characters even bat an eyelash when someone dies anymore. Red Skull's motivation in this book makes no fucking sense whatsoever. Now, the argument I had with some people is that the Nazis were like against genetically deficient people, like people with physical or mental handicaps were killed because they saw them as genetically unfit and stuff. And you could say that's an argument for why Red Skull wants to kill the mutants in this book. The problem with that is that the Nazis were also about creating the perfect human. They were always about achieving the ultimate, form of humanity in a physical and psychological sense. And really, who the fuck would think that people who shoot lasers out of their eyes can control metal with their minds or use, hex magic that can warp the very fabric of reality, genetic deficiency? Like, who the fuck would think that? Like, if anything, Red Skull should be joining up with the mutants and fighting against the humans, because the mutants are the superior race, and they've shown this plenty of times. They've shown that in their ideology they're superior to us, and in their very physicality they're superior to us because they have these superpowers that make them super and make them superior to us. And it just doesn't make any sense to me why Red Skull would side with the ordinary humans. If anything, he should be kind of like the new Magneto, mutant supremacy. They're the next form of human evolution. They're the supreme humans, and so I'm gonna work for them and fuck regular humans. That's sort of how I think Red Skull should be reacting to this, and it's really weird for me to see him sort of stand up for the underdog, because the Nazis weren't about the underdog. The Nazis were about creating the ultimate human genetically, physically, mentally, and all that stuff. And mutants are the superior form of humanity. And again, it doesn't make any goddamn sense to me why he's siding with the regular humans and citing mutants as this plague or cancer or whatever. Thor has this one moment that just This one moment where I just wanted to tear this book completely to pieces. Basically, after some random mutant basically attacks New York, kills a lot of people, and demolishes a good chunk of the city, Thor was like, I have stood by and watched this anti-mutant conspiracy unfold for many years now, but nay, I shall not do that any more. From now on, I shall deal with this threat, for I believed that humanity and their nobility would overcome their hatred of these innocent people. And I was like, wow, you are so blind, or you are a fucking idiot. Because the whole prejudice against mutants has never made any sense, and it has always been completely one-sided. Humans have always been bastards towards mutants. There has never been a single fucking human being, a regular one. I'm not counting the Avengers. I'm counting a regular human like you and me who has been nice to mutants. These are the scumbags that pretty much created the Sentinel program in order to kill and torture and lock away mutants. And when Thor talks about, human nobility overcoming their hatred, I just couldn't help but scream at the sheer stupidity of that statement. If anything, Magneto is right and Xavier is completely wrong. Humans have never, ever, 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 ever shown even the slightest desire to make peace with mutants. They have only ever treated them as shit, as third-rate citizens, and they created an entire program of giant robots in order to murder them all. If anything, yeah, I'm sorry, my brain, that sort of happens to me. My brain goes 100 miles ahead of my mouth and I don't know what to say. But his statement is just unbelievably stupid. Humans have never done anything or shown any desire to make peace with mutants. They've always treated them like crap, and I have no idea what the hell Thor's talking about. The only noble people in the whole Marvel Universe are the Avengers and some of the X-Men. Why? Because they're the good guys. All of the other regular humans are scumbag pieces of shit towards mutants. And yeah, that whole part just really infuriated me. And just this whole mutant versus human thing, and this whole book it just really bothers me because, again, it's one-sided, and two, it doesn't make any sense. The whole basis of this whole book is based on a concept that was created in the 60s that doesn't make any fucking sense anymore. It doesn't work anymore. Because I've never understood why regular people are against just mutants. Why aren't they against superheroes? Look at Iron Man. If Iron Man's technology was stolen and mass-produced, that would pretty much be the worst thing ever, because Iron Man has a near Batman level of knowledge about every superhero in the Marvel Universe. He's created an armor to basically combat every possible threat in the Marvel Universe, and if all that technology and information was stolen and used by some villain, it would probably result in the biggest threat the human race has ever seen. So why the fuck aren't they against Iron Man? Hell, why aren't they against Thor? I would think that human beings would be much more afraid of Norse gods that can control the very fabric of nature and decimate entire cities just by farting at them, would be bigger threats than some mutants. And this whole thing feels like it's editorially mandated, like they're making a big deal out of something that's been going on for decades, but up until this point, they've been completely ignoring it. That's the same thing that happened in Civil War. Oh my God, civilians died because of superheroes. And I was like, that's been happening for years. Like, what the fuck has the Hulk been doing? Like, the Hulk and the Avengers and every other superhero basically destroys New York City and results in the deaths of hundreds, if not thousands, of civilians on a daily basis. So why the fuck is this whole event thing, this one catastrophe, suddenly a bigger deal than all the other hundreds or thousands of ones that have happened in the past? And now that whole anti-superhero thing that they set up in Civil War has been swept completely under the rug. And don't tell me they're trying to make it consistent or whatever. Oh, they're trying against superheroes. Oh, they're trying against mutants. That's bullshit. Because, if anything, people should be against Thor at this point. Because a Norse god like Thor destroyed the entire planet. Hell, the Grey Gargoyle, who was chosen to be one of the worthy in fear itself, killed all of Paris. He turned all of Paris into stone. And no one is against Norse gods. So you people now see just how this whole prejudice is complete bullshit and doesn't make any sense? The very foundations, this whole story, this whole team, this whole book is based around is complete bullshit, and I don't buy any of it in the book. Any of it. And, oh my god, and I can't even say that any of the character stuff is particularly good. Like, Alex is the leader who doesn't want to be the leader, but he has to be because it's editorially mandated, even though he has no experience leading a team, let alone the team that's supposed to represent a unity between humanity and X-Men, yada, yada, yada. Rogue is just a bitch. Wanda is just there. Thor is just there. Wolverine didn't even need to be in this book, to be honest. The only character that kind of gets any sort of good god damn it, my brain went ahead of me again. The only character that gets any sort of interesting concept or theme added to them is Captain America. Because the way Rick Remender writes Cap in here is that Cap secretly dislikes mutants. Like, he's an old world guy, and these mutants clash with his old world views. Tongue-tied, sorry. Mutants clash with his old world view and his old world ways, and he kind of hates them. But since he's a really nice guy, he's trying to get over this sort of prejudice he has for mutants. And I thought that was a pretty cool idea. But again, nothing is really done with it. It's just sort of touched on, and it's never brought up again. It's there, and then it's not there. What else was really bad about this book? What the hell are Scarlet Witch's powers supposed to be? Because the way she describes it in this book is that she has control over magic, like a demon hex magic. And I just wondered, like, how does demon hex magic, how could you control that by being a mutant? Because Doctor Strange is like the most powerful sorcerer of all time. Like, he can travel to dozens, if not hundreds, of different dimensions, and he can do all sorts of cool shit with his magic, and he's basically the most powerful sorcerer on the planet, and he's just a human. So I don't get her powers. Like, do her powers have any sort of limits? Do they run out? Does she have some sort of timer for how long she can use them? I don't know. Like, her powers really, really confuse me, to be honest with you. But yeah, like, the themes and the ideas and the whole premise of this book are just built around something that's inherently flawed. There are so many things here that just don't make any sense. And I just felt stupider reading this. I felt like I was rereading the Superior Spider-Man trade. I felt like I was just becoming stupider and stupider here. And don't tell me I can just discredit all the other stuff that's happened in the Marvel Universe and just judge this on its own, because I can't. Because this is basically Marvel retreading what they did with Civil War, and it doesn't work.